Hey guys, welcome to Hashtag Behind Relationship Goals. I'm Bones.
And I'm Fofo.
All right, guys, before we begin with the podcast, we just want to let everyone know that this podcast episode is sponsored. Who is it sponsored by, Fofo?
Our sponsor for today is Pet Warehouse.
Yes, so Pet Warehouse is actually the biggest online pet store in the Philippines. It was very interesting how we found this website because we found them during the beginning of ECQ. Naubusan ng food si Soba and si Salem and everything was closed. So I was really scrambling for a way on how am I going to feed my fur babies.
Yeah, I think everybody was scrambling actually. I think everybody was trying to scramble for supplies.
Yeah.
And of course, you think about supplies for yourself first and then next, of course, you're thinking about your fur babies, your pets.
And not everybody feeds kasi their pets, natural food like yung food that we eat also. Some people really rely on like kibble and they have like other things that they might need for pets. So I was scrambling online trying to look for a place where I could buy and I came across Pet Warehouse. I ordered, it was the middle of ECQ. I didn't even know if it was going to arrive, but a couple of days later, the food finally arrived.
And I guess that was the start of our relationship with Pet Warehouse. And a couple of months later, we found out that the owners of Pet Warehouse also listened to the podcast.
Yay!
So they got in touch and we said, great, we like this partnership. We're going to tell you more about that story later on. But they are the sponsor of this episode and we're really happy to have them.
Yeah, so first off, you guys can check them out at their website, which is petwarehouse.ph, or on Facebook and Instagram, petwarehouseph.
All right.
Now we move on to the episode for today. And it's very interesting how this is our topic because...
This is going to be very interesting for everyone. I promise you.
Woohoo! Alam niyo na, pag gumanyan ako, woohoo, very interesting. Because, Fofo and I have been working together for quite some time now. We both started our careers separately, but eventually it came to a point na we started working together. And now that we're in lockdown, ECQ, MECQ, we've collaborated on a lot of things. And we've gotten to a point where, okay, we're working on a lot of things together. The podcast is one of the things that we work on together. And we've kind of created a system. But there are times like today when I did not have a system.
Okay, before we even get to that, the topic for today is working with your partners or spouses. I guess before we even get to that, I think it's nice to kind of lay down the groundwork. How did we view each other as workers prior to working together? Because the first time that Bonizi and I ever worked together was during a teleserye. And prior to that, it was like for a guesting. But that was all within the span of a year. So that was around 2017. I think that was the very first time we ever really worked together. Even for hosting gigs, we would almost never work together. For a good 7 years of us being together, we kind of just had to, come up with our own ideas of what kind of worker this person is.
And I would only get like tidbits of how you were on the set from like your stories or from things that I would hear from people that we both worked with together. Like if, let's say I worked with an AD that you worked with previously, they'll be like, oh, Mikael was like this during our last shoot. It's so interesting how he is. I'm like, oh, really? I didn't know that Mikael was a little bit like fun and
Okay. So let's start this off already. So instead of us explaining how we were, why don't we explain how we thought each other were?
Knowing your personality.
Back then.
Back then. You were very like out there and fun and you're very curious. And I was like, I wonder how curious Mikael is going to be with the people around him. Like, is he going to ask about their lives? Is he gonna develop like deep friendships with the people that he works with? Because I don't know, I've never seen him in the workspace. And I also didn't know how you prepared for work. So before you would go on the set, I was curious as to how efficient you would be, because I think it came from me seeing you at this time play Dota all night. And I was like, how does he prepare for work if he plays like Dota till like early morning? So I wondered these things.
What conclusions did you get to at that time?
Well, I would watch some of your stuff. I watched your Amaya because our Tagalog wasn't that great at that
And?
point. It just felt like I was watching a different person.
My take on you, because I was always very easy on the girls that I liked, obviously. I always thought very highly of you guys, of the girls whom I liked off the bat.
Yeah.
Parang mataas agad yung tingin ko sa inyo. And that's how I felt with you. So when I first met Bonizi, she was going to taping. I had no idea what taping was or what that really involved. The work that I had was intermittent. At that time, I was just going to VTRs and I was just doing fashion modeling. So fashion shows. My work was very intermittent and she seemed to have work that was a bit heavier. So taping would be 24 hours.
Yeah.
The way I thought, I was like, oh, wow, dude, sipag, because she has to do all these things. And then I remember you also did ASAP, where you were hosting for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And just talking for 3 hours. I was like, wow, it's quite the commitment. I can't imagine that's easy. So I put you up there. It was a roller coaster, the way I saw you and your work ethic. Because as soon as I entered show business and I started working with brands and clients and started to get to know people who you worked with as well,
Yeah.
I came across a couple of stories, and I think you know this story.
Of course.
Someone told me that Megan was suplada, that she was a diva. So those two words were specifically the two words that I heard. And I was like, oh
This was
my
early
God,
on, no?
really?
This
This
was
was like
early
year
on.
one.
Yeah.
Year one, year two. And I was like, really? It's like, yeah. When she has her makeup done, she has her resting bee face on.
Yeah.
She just wasn't pleasant to work with. And that caught me off guard because, of course, that's not the experience that I had with Megan, with
Yeah.
Bonizi. So I took that with a grain of salt, but I put it at the back of my head. The thing is, I never was able to confront Bonizi about this right away because I had no right. It was our first year together. Yeah, this was our first year together that I found this out.
And I think also because like at that time we were both working in different networks. So it wasn't like at a point where, oh, we're going to work together.
And not just that, who was I? Diba? 1 year pa lang, I had no idea what I was doing. I was probably doing really badly in most of my projects. Ang dami kong sablay because of the learning curve, trying to just get up to speed with everybody. So who was I to even like bring this up? I might have been worse without knowing it, right?
Yeah.
So I had never really brought it up.
Okay.
And then eventually, as time went on, I got to know you more. I got to know your spending habits, your money thing. I got to know your bad habits.
Yeah.
Because your good habits, obviously.
deal breakers. You got to know the deal breakers.
Those show up really early, the
Yeah.
good habits. But the bad habits show up in
It
a
takes
relationship a bit
time.
later on. Then I wondered, okay, I heard this story early on. How much truth is there to this story? And then, of course, eventually, we got more comfortable talking to one another. You eventually came into GMA. That's where us as workers really started to unravel for
Yeah.
both of us. We really started to show that side of ourselves.
I feel like we're both very different from who we were as, professionals when we were much younger from now.
And we're also both very different as professionals.
Yes. Then and now.
Then and now.
I wasn't pleasant to work with when I was much younger. So I was like around 18, 19, maybe 20. I was working on a show and I didn't know how to make pakisama. At the back of my head, I was just thinking na, okay, I'll go to work. If I don't like something, I'll tell people that I don't like it. But I didn't realize that there was a nicer way of saying things. And it even came to a point where my PA at that time told me, no one wants to do your makeup because you're such a diva, because you always make reclamo and you always like say you don't like this or you don't like that. And I was like, oh, I felt so bad after that. And that was like a shifting point for me. I talked to like the makeup artists on my team and I apologized to them for acting that way.
So why did you act that way? I mean, did you act that way because you wanted to be a diva, or like what was the motivation behind acting that way at first? Was it just ignorance, not knowing?
It was ignorance, and
Okay.
it was me not knowing any better. At the end of the day, I wasn't being a nice person. I wasn't being a good person, and I didn't have the proper guidance from, the people around me at that time.
Now we move on to us eventually working together. And
Yeah.
kind of explaining what happened there.
So the first time that we worked together was The Stepdaughters. Was it? Yeah, like fully.
Well, okay, so the first one was actually Dangwa, there we go.
Dangwa.
Because that was the
Okay.
Wagas
Kay
team.
Janine.
We did Dangwa, which was a one episoder, And then we did another one together. And then eventually we got our teleserye.
I was so nervous to work with Mikael for the first time because I got very conscious. I thought, what if I didn't act right? Or what if I would forget my lines because I would get too kilig in front of him? So I was very conscious and anxious about working with you for the first time.
That is your personality. So that when Bonizi is faced with a challenge, those are always the feelings that come forward at first. When she's faced with uncertainty also, those are always the feelings that she would feel. For me, however, faced with that same situation, I felt excited to work with Bonizi and kind of, show her how I work and try to figure out how we could work together. I'm always aware of the fact that things aren't always going to go smoothly at the beginning, regardless of who you're with your brother, with your girlfriend, with your future wife, with a friend, with a new friend, or with an acquaintance. There are always going to be highs and lows. But the thing is, I already know that, and I've accepted that that's going to happen. Sometimes it starts really low, sometimes it starts really high. But because I'm aware of that and I kind of put that in my head, I'm able to not worry about it anymore and just be excited for the moment.
Yeah.
Like there have been times that I work with people that it doesn't go well at the very beginning, but I know that, hey, okay, I guess there's nowhere to go but up.
Yeah.
So I think what's scary for a lot of people is that when they work with the person whom they love
Or somebody that's important to them.
with their partner, I think they feel like the stakes are higher.
Yeah.
In
Because
a way,
you don't
yeah.
want to upset your partner when you work with them. You also don't want to disappoint them because parang in some ways like you have expectations or you think they have certain expectations for how you're gonna work. Like for me, when I first worked with you, at the back of my head I was like, oh, is he expecting me to be a certain way when we're working together? Should I act a certain way? So I was thinking of like all these different things of how I should be when I should have just focused on my work instead of focusing on how you were thinking.
I also understand. I think it's so valid how you were feeling because yun nga, higher stakes eh. The stakes involved are your relationship, our emotions together, how we would feel. So anything that happens, be it good or bad, it's always amplified by the fact that we are in a relationship.
Yeah.
Moving forward to today, much has changed.
A lot.
A lot has changed simply because we are working together 24/7. This is exactly what ECQ has brought to our lives. Yeah. So after our teleserie together, Bonizi got her own show. I got my own show. The only times that we would work together would be during vlogging, but that wasn't even work.
Yeah, and vlogging for us was more of, okay, let's do this because it's fun. Not because like, okay, we need to put out a vlog because we have like deadlines or because we need to do this to earn money. Like it was really just something that we would do for fun.
Yeah, literally just for fun. We never ever considered it to be work.
So basically our work setup before when we would be doing taping is Mikael would probably be off the taping like Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I'd be off the taping the opposite days of the week.
So there was a lot of time apart.
Yeah, so we had me time. We had times to ourselves. And then there would also be time for us to be together. But our work life when we weren't working on one show together was really separate. Like we had our own like working environment.
However, today,
Our working environment is all at home. All the production we do in this like office studio that we've made, it's for the podcast, it's for the stream, it's for the vlog, and we work on it almost every day of the week.
and we're physically up close to one another, like physically at least just 2 meters away from another for the whole day.
Yeah.
There's no physical distancing. There's no social distancing between us. We're doing work together side by side all the time. Mondays, all the ways up to Sundays, even during breaks, during the times that we eat. So it's a lot of bones and fofo.
Yeah, a lot of time together.
So how has that worked for us?
Going back to like working together with your partner, it's often seen in an office setting. There are people that we know people that have worked together that eventually got married or became long-term couples. We also know couples that became partners while working in office space, but then hindi nila kinayanan, so they had to move to like different companies. So it depends on the couple, but we see it a lot in the workplace. Even in showbiz, we see that.
One of the cons, basically, of working with your partner, we mentioned it already.
Yeah.
Lack of personal space. I think that happens. I think when you have two independent people coming together in a workspace, especially like us, the
Yeah.
way we're set up, all of a sudden your personal space, when you want personal time, you cannot have it.
Yeah.
When you're in work, you're in work. You
Yeah.
can't just say, "Hey, wait, we're not good right now. I'm gonna go away."
Since we're in one workspace, let's say you really want to work on something now and we have to work on it together, you'd be like, Bones, tara na, and vice versa. But what if like you're doing something else, diba? Like what if you're taking your time off, like your 10-minute break, diba?
Okay, so how has that worked for us? So for most people, that's a huge disadvantage. How have you seen us dealing with a lack of personal space? How does it feel to you, at least?
I didn't know how to handle it, I guess.
Really?
No, because I was like, Fofo and I are like always together. But then I realized that there are some times when I need my own headspace. Like if you're here in the office, I'll go to the dining room and I'll work there like in silence. Kasi parang feeling ko, okay, I'm more productive when I'm alone for when I'm working on this project. And I know that you feel the same way. This is coming from you saying before na when I'm away on a trip and you're left at like home, na wala
Okay.
ako, you're productive. I also got that idea na I'm not as productive when I'm next to Fofo because parang nadidistract ako minsan when you're watching like your NBA stuff, or I'll feel like too comfortable, like, oh, like he's playing games, maybe I should play games. But I didn't want to like stray off from my concentration on what I was doing. So I'd move to like another room or like another space na alam ko na I can just concentrate on whatever I'm working on.
Having a lack of personal space due to us working together is not a con for me. It's a non-factor for me. Even with my brothers, when they were living with us, it was never a factor that there were so many people around. I actually didn't mind. I don't mind when there are a lot of people around me and when you're always around me, but I also don't mind if there are no people around me. So I guess for me, it's just not that big of a deal. To each his own, right? So for Megan, ang dami niya nasabi about the lack or having a lot of personal space. For me, it's like, nah, I'm cool with it. For me, kasi I can do my work with distractions and without distractions. I guess that comes down to my personality, and I think you can attest to that.
Yeah.
Is when I'm focused, I'll just focus on it talaga.
Yeah, he won't hear
Regardless-
anything else.
Yeah, regardless of what's there.
Anything. Like I'll be like, Fofo.
I'm just like, okay, I just need to finish this, so I'm just gonna like sit down and really work. I won't like lollygag or do other things. So
Lollygag.
yeah, I'm just gonna focus on it.
Fofo, when he concentrates on something, like he's really concentrated and he can't hear anything. So when he's working on something, I'll ask him a question like, Fofo, how do I do this? Blah, blah, blah. And then I won't get an answer. So I'll just wait. And I won't bug him, but I'll hear his answer like 10 minutes later. You'll just say the answer, and I'm just like, what
yeah.
are you saying? He's like, you asked me a question earlier. And I'm like, what question? I forgot na. I'm like, why did you just answer me now? He's like, I was working on something, but at least I remembered, right?
Okay, so yun nangyayari doon, nagkakaroon ng backlog sa utak ko. But at least, nagawa kong backlog. Kasi other people, pasok isang tenga, labas isa.
I think what I should do now is if I have a question and you're working on something, I'm just going to write it down and I'll show you later.
Yeah, I think everybody's brain processes things differently, and obviously magkasaliwa kami dun sa style na yun. But I think that was a very interesting quirk that we
Yeah.
have when it comes to our workspace.
Yung con is lack of personal space. But for some people, working with your partner, parang it increases intimacy or parang mas nagiging close kayo as a partner. When we first started working together, lalo na nung nag-ECQ, we just got married and we were trying to like fix our office setting in the house. We had less couple time because we were working on a lot of stuff. Like kahit minsan like we weren't hugging because we were just like working too much that we forgot about it. So during the beginning, it was like that. And I realized
So was there less intimacy for you?
parang feeling ko we were very focused on work that parang we put aside like our romantic stuff like hugging and kissing. I was like, oh, parang I want to hug Fofo, but he's working
Wow,
right
we
now.
have such different views on these things. Okay.
In the beginning, like I would say like the first 3 weeks, especially when we were moving like our system to a different like chat group. During those times, especially when I was feeling a bit stressed from doing my to-do list. I want to hug Fofo, but he might be like stressed right now or baka pikon siya sa akin ngayon dahil sa ginawa ko, so I won't hug Fofo muna. So parang may mga ganun akong moments before.
And now,
But now, I make sure na parang if I'm feeling tired from what I did the day before or from the workout, I make sure like I go up to Fofo and I'm like, can I get a hug? I ask for it na instead of like surprising him. because it makes me feel better. It gives me like a jump of inspiration when I get like a hug or a kiss from you.
To a certain extent, you felt a decrease in intimacy.
Yeah, but it wasn't like a bad thing because at the back of my head, I was like, oh, we're doing so much work. I'm so happy.
But there was a compromise then, at least.
Yeah, there was a compromise, definitely.
So we sacrificed a bit of intimacy for more productivity.
Yes.
Okay, so for me, that scale does not apply at all. I love physical and romantic intimacy. That's great. I'm super malambing. I'm more malambing than Bonizi.
He is. He really is.
You are correct in the fact that we didn't have as much romantic or physical intimacy in terms of like just being together, lying down together, hugging one another.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I felt so much intimacy in working together.
Oh, really?
I felt like that was a different kind of intimacy that was also super relevant and super fulfilling for me. It was something that I felt like, wow, this is so cool. Only because I think that people see work as a possible problem.
Okay.
A situation where there could be problems that are arising. For me, I see it as an opportunity to kind of get to know you.
Sabi ko na nga ba, love language mo is trabaho eh.
And get to know our relationship. I guess so, yeah. I think that's a good way of putting it. Like, it could be a love language for me. I see it as a love language because I'm like, I see Bonizi in a different setting as an individual and a different setting as a partner, as a work partner, a workmate. Even in the ups and downs, I'm getting to know her. I'm getting more stories and memories with her just by working with her. These are memories that I would otherwise not have if we never worked together.
Actually, the other day, kinilig ako kasi I realized that before I would just wait for you to finish like watching all your news and stuff like that before I started working, and when you moved then I would move. But I realized that I wasn't being productive and I was just relying on you. So I started working ahead of time and ahead of you. After that, when you came into the room after your news, you were like, Bonizi, you started working so early. Haha. And then you go so happy and then I got so kilig.
It really just goes to show that so many things, even after 10 years of being together, we still see things so differently simply because we're different people. And with that, we'd like to pause the podcast just for a bit to remind you of our sponsor for today's episode, which is
Pet Warehouse.
So what are the benefits of using Pet Warehouse?
What was great about ordering from Pet Warehouse is that may free delivery sila when you order over 995 pesos. So yay for free delivery. What's cool about it is, and what I find really endearing is that their delivery team is called Pet Heroes. So if you're ordering from Pet Warehouse, you are ordering from the Pet Heroes.
Yeah, and their delivery time, so they always try to hit their goal delivery time, which is 1 to 3 days. And there's a promise that it will take no longer than 5 days during the lockdown. Actually, the owner of Pet Warehouse shared this story with us because they are super focused on
customer service
and product quality, and delivery is important to them. When the lockdown happened, there were so many logistical challenges, and at the same time there were so many extra orders because everybody all of a sudden started panic buying.
Yeah.
But it was really their goal to be able to kind of like create a system that could adjust to that as quickly as possible. And we appreciated that, and we loved that story from Pet Warehouse because it really goes to show that they really are focused on delivering the highest level of customer satisfaction. Of course, it does take time to get to that when external factors come into play like ECQ, MECQ, but we love what they stand for, and that is also why we are happily having them on board here in the podcast, and we're proud to say that they are the sponsor of our podcast.
And I think it's great because that's initially how Pet Warehouse started, is they were looking for a service where they could get food for their pets right away, and that's how they thought of starting out Pet Warehouse. You can also order from their website, which is petwarehouse.ph, or you can also order through text, through Viber, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook. Kung ano yung madali para sa inyo, you guys can order through those channels.
And because we want to create an atmosphere of tulungan here in the podcast, Pet Warehouse is also offering first-time customers a 10% discount.
Yay!
Okay, so
Walang
make
minimum
sure you,
purchase yan.
Yeah, just make sure you use it. All you have to do is put in the promo code Mikael Megan. So we're going to put all these details in the caption, and we'll remind you before the podcast ends.
Yes, and this is for the first 100 people that will avail of this voucher. So make sure you go ahead and order na.
All right, we move back to the podcast. Bonizi, aside from the lack or abundance of personal space, and aside from intimacy issues or the abundance of intimacy, What other pros and cons are there when it comes to working with your partner? There are these stereotypes
Yeah.
kasi.
What resonates with me that I see us as a couple is that, there are things that we love doing together. There are things that we love doing apart, but we have similar interests, like one, gaming. Two is we love tech, but you're more of the techie than I am. But I love how we're able to bring these things that we like into like one working space, which is like the podcast. We love telling stories. So we were able to come up with something that the both of us could work on.
You know how you're with the same person every single time? Does it make things a bit boring? May umay factor ba yan? Because some people have that. Some couples have that. It's like, dude, I'm sick of my girlfriend's face. I'm sick of my wife's face. Like you hear people say that.
Yeah.
And it's true. I think there are some personalities who have that kind of disposition in their personality. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's a truth that happens and people can feel that. So I'm wondering, how do you feel about that?
Well, I have no problem looking at your face all day, Fofo. But I mean, when it comes to working with you on the same things, we live in the same house. I think we've been able to adjust to a point where we have times of the day. We've scheduled it now. Okay, during the daytime, we're really like working nonstop. And then at night, we have our game time. During breakfast, we have our game time. We're able to like do things on our own so that we have our, what do you call this, quote unquote, me time. And I think that's really important because if we're together 24/7, we're always seeing each other, always talking to each other. It's important that we have certain times of the day where we can just do whatever we want.
So does anything ever become monotonous between us? Or since we started working together, since ECQ started, the start of this year, since we got married, have you noticed anything that has become monotonous? So I guess less fun or less exciting?
No.
Okay.
I'm really enjoying I think I'm like I like things that are like steady, and I also like the occasional surprises, and I think that we're constantly trying to change up our routine. So we do have like a routine where, we have breakfast together and we play games together in the morning, and then we go off to work in our office. But there's always something new for us to look forward to. There's always a new idea that either you or I present. It excites me.
Okay.
I like new and scary things now. It's always something new to look forward to, always a new beginning to look forward to.
That's interesting that you say that things have not gotten monotonous. The fire of the daily grind hasn't lessened for you. I think for some people, and we've read stories, we've read research about this, every day, every morning, nagko-coffee, like yun yung naging ritual nila. Someone might wake up one day and say, ayoko na, ito na lang lagi ginagawa ko sa umaga. Parang they do find that monotony overbearing there. I think that's a good word.
Yeah.
They do find monotony and repetition overbearing. For you, it hasn't happened. You have not felt that.
No, I haven't.
Do you think it's something that you could feel in the future? Is that a possibility for you, or is that not in your personality?
I don't think it would be in my personality because you and I always talk about things. And if we feel like it ever comes to a point where, I'm getting bored with this, we find a way to spice it up, I guess.
I would assume that some viewers might think that I would feel that monotony because of how spontaneous I am.
Yeah.
In the vlogs, you would see it, that this is a guy who wants to get up and go on an adventure. And while that is true, that is very true. I love adventure. I love newness. I love exciting things. But I also don't mind monotony. Actually, I don't kasi see it as monotony.
Yeah, ako din.
I know we say we make coffee every morning, we eat breakfast every morning, and then we play our games every morning, and it's that ritual all the time. But there is variation to that. For me, I mean, the broad strokes look similar, but the finer detail is always different. Here's a very good example. When it comes to playing our games, there's always a new mission every day. You can always level up your player, and that's always so exciting for me.
And like there are new games that come out every so often anyways. Like we're always trying to be like, did you get this for your mission today? Or like, have you done this quest already? And then we're trying to like compete against each other, like sino mas malakas sa atin. So I think that makes it so much fun.
Even when it comes to coffee, you can make your coffee in so many different ways, right? You can have a cold brew, You can do regular brew. You can have it with a bit of milk. You can have it with a lot of milk, with half and half. So it's these finer details of these bigger activities that I think still make it very exciting. That's why the concept of monotony hasn't really crossed my mind.
I think it's also like how you view it. Like if you're going to view it, it's the same damn thing every day. Like it's so boring. But for us, like us doing the same thing, like that's our thing. That's why it's so much fun to us, because it's something that we have in common, that we love doing. And if it was with somebody else, it wouldn't be the same.
I think what it all boils down to, why we don't see monotony as a factor at all, I think it's appreciation.
Yeah.
I think it's gratitude, because I'm so happy that I am able to make coffee for you every morning, and that there's still so many coffee experience to have with you. With the games, we pay for our games. We support our games by paying and buying in-game purchases, simply because we appreciate that there's always new content to be had with our games.
Yeah.
And I think some people do take that for granted. Ay, itong mission na naman. Ay, itong na naman. But for us, we're like, ooh, dude, new mission, diba?
Yeah.
So it depends on if you're a glass half full, glass half empty kind of guy. And I guess for us, we're a bit more optimistic about it, because we really tend to appreciate, these little things, while others want to see more changes in the broader strokes of life. But to each his own. But for us, I guess we're just sharing the insight of why we don't see monotony in our lives as much. We never know. Maybe 10 years from now, we feel differently.
Let's get back to that.
We'll let you know in 10 years. I think the podcast is still going to be alive anyway. So yeah, anyway, what else?
I think when it comes to being in the same workspace with your partner, one thing that I really appreciated was the support that you were able to give me, especially when we were working on the stepdaughters. Because I know that on past shows, like I would go up to you, I'd be like, bakit kaya ganito yung nararanasan ko? Bakit ito yung nafe-feel ko? Sometimes, like when I would be working on a show and I would feel down, I would call you to get emotional support maybe, or just some kind of like lift me up. But it would be so different if we were working together. So when we were working on the stepdaughters and I was having a really bad day, like you would go up to me and talk to me, just to like give me a little pep talk, and it would help me immensely. Like I would feel so energized. I would feel more motivated to do something because you were there to, help me through it. You being able to understand my working situation, I think is a pro, and definitely something that I appreciate working with you.
So we've been together for 10 years.
Okay.
And we've taught each other and shared good habits to one another, shared our better habits to one another in hopes that we would learn and become better people, right?
Yes.
So we're basically just saying, okay, let's share one another's professional habits and become better persons. Here's the thing. I see this as an annoyance at this point, 10 years later. And the reason for that, I'm going to jump to the start of this podcast. Right before this podcast started, I was so annoyed at Bonizi. It is crazy how heavily annoyed I was. So if you guys did not notice it, just scrub back and you might see my face. I'm just like...
Crickets, crickets, crickets.
Because here's the reason. Support. I support Bonizi to the highest heavens. But eventually, I want that support to become something that comes naturally to her. I think, Bonizi, you touched on this before. You've had a problem with procrastination.
Yes.
And tardiness, punctuality. So these two things were things that I told Bonizi, you know what, in any workspace, even in a relationship, you need to take this out because nothing good will come out of it.
Yeah.
So you have to do your things on time and you have to hold yourself accountable to it. So yes, if you procrastinate, know that you do have certain consequences to procrastinating. Flash forward to today. Bonizi's project here in the house is the podcast. For me, it's the vlogs and other things. And we've been doing this for the past 2 years, and we've been doing weekly for the past 13 weeks, 16 weeks. Today, we were delayed 45 minutes to shoot. Only because she didn't prepare. She didn't charge the batteries. She didn't get the memory cards ready. I already helped her set up, but there were just so many things. She didn't have her laptop out. She didn't have the script or the topics out properly. And there were just so many things that piled on top of one another. And I was like...
It was the little things that I thought, okay, I can just do this later. And eventually they all piled up.
They all piled up and they turned into a 45-minute delay. And for me, to be honest, you respect the time of people. You respect the time of not just me, because me, I'm very lenient to a certain extent.
But still, I should have
But
respected
still,
your time also.
we have a team involved in this podcast to help it go up and running. So she has to respect their time as well.
Yeah.
You can't have people hanging and waiting. Ay, wait lang I forgot kasi to do these things, so let me do it first.
I'm so sorry, team. I love you guys.
So I put a huge premium on doing my work so that other people don't have to wait for me.
Yeah.
Because that's the essence of teamwork. And I think this is something that I've reminded Bonizi from the very, very beginning. When we worked together, before we worked together, I told her, you are always going to be part of a team. No man is an island.
Yeah.
So, and this is something that Bonizi and I have talked about and fought about numerous times. But the thing is, today, nadapa si Bonizi. The support that I would have given her, I did not want to give her because it was something that we had talked about enough. It was something that she knows the value and importance of. And my expectation for her, mataas, to be honest with you. It was really high. And that's always what I would expect of you moving forward.
Yeah.
Like when we have a family and we have kids, there are expectations of you and you have expectations of me, and we should just both meet that without having to fight about it.
Yeah. So, nadismaya ka sa akin today.
Super. I was so sad because I was like, dude, we've had this. You know exactly what you have to do. I would help you right now, but darn, we have this. You got this. This is easy. What took her 45 minutes would have taken her literally 5 minutes if she did it the night before. Or even 5 minutes if she did it like while we were eating breakfast.
Yeah.
So it was just such easy things. Pero yeah, I was mad at Bonizi a while ago.
He was. It wasn't just like disappointment. Like he was fixing the camera and I could see his face. And he makes this face where he's just like stoic. And I was, it sent chills down my spine. Well, not because like in a scary way, but because I knew that he was upset. And I knew that what I did was, unacceptable because I wasn't being respectful to the people around.
To be honest, it's less annoyed, less mad. I think the one feeling that comes out the most is actually heartbreak. And it's crazy to think, but this is in a way my love language. Remember, we've talked about this. It's heartbreaking for me to see it when you do that.
Yeah.
When you fail to do, your own work. Because for me, I'm all about wanting you to grow as a person.
Yeah.
And wanting yourself to want to grow as well.
Yeah.
And when you do that, it feels like, wow, do you not care about your work? Because this isn't even just me. Like, take me out of the equation. I'm like, wow, wala ka nang pakialam dito.
I think like if some people look at it in a different way, they might think na, pakialam mo ba sa ginagawa ng isang tao? But for you, your love language is making sure na you get happy when people are able to
take care of themselves.
Yeah, take care of themselves and do good things for themselves and the people around them. And when they disregard that or don't have appreciation for that, then you feel sad.
Yeah. So it's super heartbreaking. That's why for me, I always feel very heavy when that happens. I'm a bit better now.
You can see it. Like even in his tone of voice, it's different.
I've also learned how to move past it and not linger on it. Bonizi has also been able to at least address it and be more accountable for it.
Before I wouldn't.
It would drive me crazy. She would just sweep it under the rug. Parang walang nangyari. Parang hindi man niya sasabihin or aaminin,
I won't acknowledge.
I did this. I want to do better. But at least nowadays, she does that from time to time.
Yeah, before I would think na parang, okay, just do better. But I wouldn't acknowledge it and would really drive Mikael crazy.
You're seeing life unravel here in the podcast.
It's pretty interesting how like we've been able to, I think, grow in a way because for the past 2 years, the viewers of the podcast have seen our growth as individuals and as a couple.
True. Okay, so what else? What else do we have?
I think one con of working together, like let's go back to like the stepdaughters. There was one time when we had a super big fight. We fought one time while we were doing the teleserie. Quick backstory is Mikael and I had a really big fight and we had to work together on the set. Like we had to like act happy, but it was so hard because every time that I was in front of Mikael, he wouldn't look at me. And I was like, this guy he's really mad at me today. And then during the scenes, he would look at me and I felt like I wanted to cry because I was like, how am I going to do this? Like, I know he's doing it just because he has to, but we haven't really talked about the issue at hand. And then I had a scene where I had to cry. Dun ko na lang siya iniyak, honestly. dun sa eksena because I was like, I need to let this out. This is the only way I'm going to be able to let this out. I'm just going to cry in my scene, like for reals. That's like one of the cons that I see. But I mean, if you look at it from a different perspective, because we're in the showbiz industry and we work on TV, we're able to use those emotions also in the scenes that we do. So since we had a rough patch, but I was able to use those emotions in my scene. I was able to let out my frustration in that scene. Ano yung nakikita mo na con or pro when it comes to stuff like that?
I kind of still just plow through it. I think I'm able to compartmentalize just a bit better, just a little bit. I think you can take it from the start of this podcast. I think that was the perfect example. I mean, because I was feeling all sorts of things. I was feeling heartbroken about what you did. To be honest with you, I just said, hey, we got work to do. And at the same time, it helps that I know I was going to be able to use this point because it just tied into the topic.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to wait for the opportunity to elaborate on this story and tell all the viewers about it. And because it was a great point and it was so recent, like literally like 30 minutes ago.
All right, guys, I think now it is time for the loaded question of the week. Ten, 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 ten. Okay, so the loaded question of the week is, what would make you quit working with your spouse, or what would make you find another job? I like working with you. I mean, even if we fight, like we have like our fights like today, I know that there's a reason behind it. You got upset because I wasn't doing my part, and that's valid. It wasn't at a point where like you were getting mad because of nothing. Like there's always a reason behind us getting upset with each other. And I think it's because we want to make each other better people. I really enjoy working with you. We've had our ups and downs, but generally I love working with you.
We generally have the same answer. I don't think there's anything that would make me quit working with you because there is something that makes me always want to work with you. And there could be things that could make me quit. But I think the reason for me to want to work with you is stronger than anything that would want to make me quit.
Yeah.
So, of course, your procrastination, that sucks, dude. But
Given, yes.
But our synergy, working together, is insane.
Yeah.
Like, literally, we are more than the sum of our parts when we're working together.
And our productivity is like on another level.
I think that synergy is irreplaceable in the workspace.
Yeah.
To have two people work together and be so much more productive than if they were individuals. I think that is an asset that we cultivated and we developed. And the longer that we work together, the stronger that synergy becomes. And I think that's an asset that not a lot of people can find. It's not something that you can force. Hey, let's work on our synergy. No, it kind of just happens.
It happens. And even when we
over
were
time,
working...
and kailangan nagmamatching personalities, so many factors have to line up for synergy to continuously grow. And I think that's an asset that we bring to any workspace we go in, be it a podcast, be it a teleserye, be it a retail business, be it another business. I would not ever quit working with you because the pros of working with you are too strong to set aside.
And also, there are so many surprises that we found about each other and, about the way that we think about different things. Like we've been surprised in meetings that we've had throughout the past couple of months. Like even with decision making, it surprised the both of us in good ways. I think that's what's really great about our personal relationship and our working relationship is that there's always something new to look forward to. Even though we have rituals and things that we do the same every day, there's always that exciting factor na, hey, there's always something that I could, find out about Mikael today or maybe tomorrow or even just something that you'll teach me along the way.
I think we're at the end of our podcast.
Yay.
But before we end our podcast, we'd like to remind everybody that the sponsor of this episode is Pet Warehouse, and they are giving all first-time customers a 10% discount. All you have to do is use the code, which is
Mikael Megan.
Just type that in and make the most out of it. Check out Pet Warehouse, especially for all the forents and parents out there.
Yes, there's no minimum purchase for that. And also that is for the first 100 users that use that voucher code. And also what's great about Pet Warehouse is that they also support Paws and Kara. So if ever you guys want to donate in kind, Pet Warehouse will deliver it for free.
Yeah, and do check them out because, like we said, it's all about helping one another out here in this podcast and with the
Yes.
brands and sponsors who we partner up with. So you never know, they might have certain products that you are looking for. You might become a new regular customer for
Yeah.
them.
Just like
But-
us.
just like us. But yes, thank you so much to Pet Warehouse. It was great to get to know the owners and what the brand stands for. And thank you once again for watching the podcast Behind Relationship Goals.
Yes, and also we love reading emails from you guys. So if you guys like have any suggestions, if you just want to send us an email about, a podcast that you listened to that you found intriguing or that you could relate to, you can send us an email at behindrelationshipgoals@gmail.com.
And with that, we would like to say bye. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast or watching the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm Fofo.
And I'm Bones.
Bye-bye.
Bye.